Hello, Calaveras County, and welcome to our first edition of Mondo Calaveras. I'm Mike Taylor, your host, and I hope that this show kind of becomes sort of a fun/informative place to learn more about Calaveras County, the people who live here, and the people who make it work. And that's a way to kind of tie into our first guests. And we have with us Mary Beth Ospital from Cal Waste and our Calaveras County Superintendent of Schools, Kathy Norhtington. And Kathy, we're going to get to you in a second because we'll explain what's going on with you being here, because let's be honest, garbage and schools don't feel like they go together. So we'll talk about that in a second. But Mary Beth, tell us a little bit about Cal Waste and kind of how garbage is collected in the county.
Sure. So Cal Waste came up to Calaveras County probably 2 years ago. We're hitting our 2-year mark. We acquired the business from SCI, Waste Connections. So when we came to the county, we didn't quite realize what we were in for. So, we've got bears and snow. We came from the valley where, you drive the suburbia and you collect the trash. So, but anyways, when we came up here, Calaveras County was put under notice of compliance with the state for not meeting their recycling mandates.
Okay.
So Cal Waste decided to just take the bull by the horns and get into the schools, get into the communities. And one thing we found is when you get into the schools is that you teach it in the schools and then those kids bring that message home. So then it becomes a community-wide effort, the kids going home and talking to their parents about it. So my first trips up here, I got into every elementary school, and I just wanted to see what was going on in there. I wanted to see what they were doing for recycling, how we could help them, how we could help improve what was going on.
Sure.
So we went around and we upgraded all of the equipment, all of the containers, refurbished them all, nice brand new containers with recycle placards on them so that it was easy and identifiable for the custodians as well as the students when they were trying to recycle. So, we've just been trying to be a part of this community, trying to be a part of this county, and really help be a solution here and help everyone in this county get to where they need to be, get the notice of compliance off their back, and really just teach these kids what's important,
What is that mandate from the state I know it's something to do with the amount of your total waste stream, they call it, that is able to be recycled.
Recycled. So it's as of the year 2000, it's 50% of the waste stream should be recycled.
Oh, okay.
So that's moving to 75%.
Wow.
So the state has come in and everybody's kind of been on watch in this county. And the county, we have partnered well with the county and several, again, the schools and businesses and just really trying to help them meet that mark where they need to be. But yeah, it's not going away. It's always going to be here. And, with the state involved, those mandates are going to increase and it's going to be even tougher. So we need to get ahead of the game. Right now, Calaveras County is a little bit behind. So
about what is the percentage that
I think they're
at?
meeting the 50% now. I think but it's 15 years later, so it's quite some time has passed.
Sure, and the worry is, of course, that 75%.
Right. Yeah, trying to meet that 75% diversion rate. So we're really just kicking our 60-day offer, trying to get into the homes, but again, importantly, trying to get into the schools, and so that those children will take those habits into their homes and then increase the recycling there. So it's all about education, and that's what we're trying to do.
And so, Kathy, how is the County Office of Education kind of helping with this and partnering with Cal Waste?
Well, originally, Mary Beth and her boss approached us wanting to come and just meet with our superintendent. So that's where we started. And they came in and met with the superintendents and kind of said what they had to offer, and then each school district has worked with them trying to get the equipment and the materials and get things kind of going.
Sure.
It's been great to have a partner because the schools have really tried to do recycling for a long time. It's not really something that's new, but we haven't really had the tools sometimes to do it with. So they've been really good about coming alongside and providing the tools we need in order to really do the full recycling.
That's what I first thought of is, we know, and we could do a whole nother 10-hour show on school funding. So we all know that there isn't a lot of money out there for schools to, as silly as it sounds, let's go buy more trash cans.
Exactly.
And so has Cal Waste come in and especially speaking with regard to recyclables, kind of pulling in some of those, containers that are labeled plastics, glass, that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
of course,
they've
there's
been
not
great.
glass on campus, but
They've been great at working with the schools around that. And even my office, they've been great in working. We've gotten, our office is now focusing more on recycling, and we've done a quasi job of it over the years, but she came and did a presentation to our staff and told us where we could pick up our recycling, and that's what she's been doing with the schools. And,
okay.
And when she can get into the schools and make presentations with staff or whatever. Mary Beth is a great advocate for recycling, and being a former student in Calaveras County herself,
Right.
she really loves the schools here in Calaveras County, so it's really nice to have her out there as a voice for kind of making this happen and helping people figure out how to make it happen. Because I think
Okay.
before there's always been the desire, we just didn't have the means and the money to make it happen. Like you're saying, buying the containers,
Yeah.
The pickup and all of that. So they've made it much easier than it would have
Because I
been
know,
before.
like on the Calaveras High School campus, there's a pretty active,
Group, yeah.
and just as I think about it, naturally that's when the brain has a freeze, folks. And I forget the name of the club, but it's a quasi
environmental club.
Yeah,
Yeah,
an environmental
yeah.
club, and they came out very strong several years ago. Jim Piso, a former retired teacher from Calaveras High, helped really get the students energized about that. And I want to say that they held one of the first electronics recycling events in the
I
county.
think they might have, you're right.
And
You're right.
so, that, like you say, getting the youth involved first.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the things you do when you visit a school, Mary Beth? What are you telling kids that they need to look at?
When I first, like Kathy mentioned, when I first went into the schools, I went into the principals and I said, this is what we're proposing we'd like to do. We'd like to get the custodial staff on board because they're the ones cleaning the classrooms, and it was really just adding an extra bag to the custodian's cart. You have your black bag for your trash and a clear bag so that you can see the recycling, so that when you get
Okay.
out to the container, you're not second guessing which bag is recycling and which is trash.
Sure.
So that was one thing. Custodians were very, they accepted it with open arms. There was no pushback because, we weren't trying to put more work on anybody. That's
Sure.
not what we were trying to do. So we started there. Then my next visit, I went into every single kitchen for every school here in the county.
Oh.
And because if you can imagine what goes on in there, there's lots of tin cans, that
Oh, yeah.
plastic seasoning bottles, things like that. And so it was really just an educational, hey, this can be recycled. So what we did was we brought in cans or carts, and we put it in the kitchen, and instead of throwing all that stuff in the trash, now they're throwing it in the recycling.
I see.
So we started in there. Then we moved towards the classrooms, and I visited every little classroom. And they have these great colorful tubs that were around when I was a student many years ago. But what Cal Waste brings to Calaveras County is mixed recycling. So it's commingled recycling, which is everything that's recyclable goes into one.
Doesn't really have to be sorted.
It does not
Here's
have to
the-
be
okay.
sorted. The glass, the plastic, the cardboard, the tin, all of it goes into one container.
Okay.
So that's a mindset that we're trying to have to teach this county. They're used to sorting it all out, and only my cardboard can go here. Well, the big message here is that it's mixed recycling, and then we bring it to our facility down in Galt, and we process it there. We sort through it.
Oh, okay. That's what
So
I was
we
going to
have
ask, is where does it ultimately get sorted?
all of the recycling that Cal Waste collects
Mm-hmm.
comes down to our $11 million facility in Galt. It's a state-of-the-art facility, and everything gets processed there. So all of the recycling out of the county, minus the recycling that happens at the transfer station. So if you're taking your recycling to the transfer station, that's being processed by somebody else. So
Okay.
we take only what we collect.
I
So what
see.
our subscribers pay for, we take down to Calaveras County. We've had some schools come down and tour our facility. It really just closes the loop for the students. It helps them realize, what happens when that truck comes to my house and services my cart?
Sure.
Well, it doesn't just magically disappear. It really does go somewhere. So it's, and it's adults too. Adults get to come down and see that. So it's really fascinating. And then we decided to create this lovely video. And so I went in and I talked to the students about recycling and how important it is for the environment. And although I'm an adult and all of our teachers are adults, what can we do for the next generation of, the next generation? And so it's really important, I think, that we teach these. And it's not just recycling. I mean, there's many things that play into this. So the kids, I've seen an increase in recycling at every school site due to the fact that we talk about it. A lot of the schools collect their own bottles and cans, and they turn the money back into a program at their school, which
Sure.
is fabulous. We have no problem with giving back to the schools.
Again, with helping with funding.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
right.
tapping that funding.
Right. So, and again, we hope that these kids will take that message home to their families and recycle in their homes.
Are schools sort of, because of that age thing, are they kind of helping sort of lead the county in the amount of waste? Let's say you've got 100 pounds of garbage from XYZ elementary school. Is, you know, are schools recycling, say, 65% of their garbage now, or?
Yeah, you know, I don't quote me on the numbers because I honestly don't know. But I know that, I mean, we went from school sites that had 2 96-gallon recycle carts to now a 2 to 3 to even a 4-yard recycle container.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's tremendous. So, again, I don't know the specifics on what the schools, but the schools are a huge contributor to recycling. Paper is the #1 thing that comes out of schools. Cardboard comes out of
That's what I was going to
cafeterias.
ask about Kathy's office is I can imagine the vast majority of your garbage
Is paper.
being paper.
Yeah.
And that's a relatively, maybe innocuous isn't the right word, but it's, you know, we see it as garbage, just something, go dump it in the landfill and it'll fizzle away and whatnot. What happens to paper that gets recycled? Does it ultimately go and make more paper? Or?
Yes, it does. It
Okay.
actually gets, the majority of the things that we take to our facility, a lot of them get baled and shipped overseas to be made into either more packaging, more paper. Some of the stuff stays local, you know, our glass stays local, some of our plastic, our aluminum cans stay local, but a vast majority of the things that come to our facility are shipped overseas to be made into a new product. So, and again, you know, you talk about you're sitting at your desk and everything that you're throwing under there is probably recycling except for the few food scraps you may eat during the day.
Sure.
So, you know, when I go into these businesses or these, you know, wherever I may go, we talk about, you know, eliminating the trash under your desk. That no longer is trash, that's recycling. So be careful what you put in there. And if you do have a banana peel, just walk to the hallway and maybe toss it into the nearest trash can. Because when the custodian comes by, he dumps that whole thing. And again, the majority of that is paper and recyclable material.
Of course, at many of our Calaveras County schools, you can compost that,
Yeah, that's right,
that
with the
banana
gardens.
peel
Yes,
because
right.
we've got so many gardens
Gardens.
thriving at our county schools, and of course that composts. I mean, I do that at my house, and I produce next to no wet garbage like that.
Wow, that's amazing.
But that compost makes a garden go crazy, so something else. Kathy, I've got to ask, was your staff surprised at the amount of paper that was deemed trash, say on a weekly or maybe even daily basis?
Well, I think we were doing okay on paper a little bit because we were still doing some recycling with paper because we know there's so much paper that we do. We just weren't doing some of the other recycling as much. So we were sorting our paper, and then we found out, okay, we don't have to sort all this. So that made life a little bit easier.
Sure.
We didn't have to have as many containers, and you know, it was getting staff kind of used to, okay, there's other things in your day that you can recycle in addition to the paper and stuff, thinking about other things that you use. So that was a big, you know, learning curve for our staff. And we're still, you know, we just had a meeting about, okay, they're not quite ready to give up their trash under their desks just yet, but we're working on that, you know, and they'll get there, I'm sure. But, you know, we're still a work in progress. And I think it is for the schools as well.
Sure.
You know, I think, you know, we know that kids are always recycling like aluminum cans and things like that for fundraising. That's been the mainstay of a lot of the recycling. And there was some teachers who really got involved in recycling. Doug Goldie, for one, was one
Oh,
that
that's right.
did a big recycling
There's the
push.
pioneer kind of in Calaveras County. That's a good point.
And so they had done a lot with, you know, bringing recycling into our county, and we still have some of that. But I think that there's still so much more we can recycle that I think that's what Mary Beth has brought to our thinking is there's a lot more you could recycle. You are doing okay, but there's a lot more you could be recycling. So,
Sure.
and just bringing the tools and the help and the support for that. So.
Now, I know that both of you, before we started filming, folks, they believed we were going to be able to show you a really cool video that some school children made, but we're having some technical difficulties with that. So what I wanted to ask is that video available, say, online somewhere? Is it posted anywhere?
Yes, it's on YouTube. You
Okay.
can find it. It's called Don't Waste Our Future.
Don't Waste Our Future. How poignant.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a great video.
Yeah. And how many
Very good.
schools participated in producing that?
All of the elementary schools in Calaveras County except for one.
Oh,
So
wow,
It
okay.
also features students from the elementary schools in Galt. We service Galt down in the
Okay.
valley. So we took some the elementary schools from that area as well as Calaveras County. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, as kids learn about this and you talk about them taking the message home, what's maybe that first message that folks who are watching here maybe might not have heard from their kids that you have asked children to take home to their parents so that we can start working on that waste stream countywide?
Well, I probably have to say that when we teach it to we have taught a program in the Valley schools for only the 2nd and 4th graders. It's a three-session program.
Okay.
So we supply the teachers, we supply the curriculum, and it meets the Common Core standards that they're being taught. It's approved curriculum. They did it back in the 90s, and we've just recently brought it to Galt last year. We completed one whole year. So we're looking to present that to Calaveras County to see if it's something they would like. It's been phenomenal down in the Valley. The kids have just really enjoyed it. They've embraced it. The video was kind of like an end, an end to that, and then they got to come see the facility. So, I think the message to just send home to the parents is just, one of them is the things that you buy at the store. So we as consumers, how are we buying things? Everything's overpackaged anyways.
Oh, it's packaged to death.
It's packaged to death, and for the family of 4 and the mom who's busy, she wants to buy the individually wrapped goldfish because it's easier than putting them into another bag. So
Yes.
we try to definitely educate people on what you buy. Be conscious of what you're buying. So that we're not just having all this extra garbage to throw away. And then secondly, I think it's just education on what is recyclable and what is not. That's the big question here is, there was never a doubt in my mind when I visited these schools that they were on board with recycling and that they wanted to be a part of it, but they just needed the materials and they needed the education. And I think the county, all of the communities within Calaveras County, I could say the same thing for it. It's just a lack of education,
Okay.
Should I throw this in there? Should I not throw this in there? At the end of the day, I always like to say, when in doubt, throw it in the recycling because it comes to our facility where we process through it. I'm not saying throw your dirty diapers and your hoses and your tires. That does happen. But if you're,
yes.
You're unsure if this plastic is recyclable or not, throw it in there. We'll get it out if it shouldn't be in there. But I truly think it's sending the message home, educating the kids to take that message home to their parents. And you would really be surprised, you hear from parents, oh great, my kid is digging through the trash, taking things out, and they're heckling their parents because their parents aren't recycling.
Well, that's the powerful thing, and that's as I've gotten older, I've noticed that children will pick up on things like that, and it might be just that one little thing. Don't throw those baggies, into the recycling, and I don't even know. Are like plastic bags? Are they recyclable or not?
We don't take them in our blue carts.
Okay.
And it's like styrofoam. Styrofoam is recyclable. We do not collect it in our blue carts because we don't have a market. We don't have a place to take that styrofoam.
Yeah.
Styrofoam, as we all know, it's so light, and
It takes up tons of space,
to make one bale.
To make one bale, yeah.
Right. So we don't take those in at our facility. We don't
Okay.
take plastic bags. So there are certain things that you get in that, well, it is recyclable, but we don't take it. So there's that fine line where you're trying to teach recycling, because that kid could eventually move out of this county someday in a place where they do take styrofoam. So I just try to kind of, educate. It is recyclable. We just don't take it in our stream. So.
What are some of the other things that people maybe don't think are recyclable that actually are?
Oh my.
You mentioned cans in the kitchen, and that's something, aluminum, we all know, when you get through with that aluminum can, it goes in the recycling. But kitchen cans aren't made out of aluminum, most of them, right?
Right, they're a tin can, a metal,
Okay.
and so those are recyclable. All of your soup
they are?
cans,
Okay.
yes. Anything that, gosh, I'm trying to think, but
Well, I could actually say, I think for some of us too in Calaveras County, because we were maybe a little slow to get into our recycling, and we were limited on what plastics we could recycle. And now they're just saying, throw it all in there. So
If it's
for
plastic,
me
and
at
then
home,
you guys will look at the
yeah,
little triangle and
for
figure
me
out
at home
what to
now,
do
if it's
with it.
plastic, it just goes in recycling. I figure they'll figure it out. If it doesn't work, they'll figure it out. You know? So, and for me at home, I've changed that. Where used to, I was always looking, going, okay, well, that's not that number, so I can't recycle that. And I think now that
Well, and I
we're
remember
changing
that initially in California, a lot of plastics were mandated to be recycled, but like you say, there wasn't a market for
place.
it, so nobody knew what to do with it if it did get turned in, even to be recycled. You know, the recycler at the grocery store either wouldn't take it or would take it very reluctantly and say, one day we're going to, in fact, I joked with one saying, you know, just drive it all down to the Capitol lawn and dump it out and say, you guys tell us what to do with it, and we'll go ahead and recycle it for you. So.
But you're right, kids are really a strong, powerful voice with their parents.
Are.
Because
And they can
that's
be
what
a
got my
quiet
house turned
force
around.
because they'll just kind of, like you say, start digging through the trash and just sort of doing it. And when mom and dad ask, that's when that lesson is learned. What do you find as kids get older? Do they keep that message in their head, you know, as they go from second to fourth to sixth and then, you know, into high school? Are they retaining that recycling mantra and keeping those practices in their own lives?
well, I would say before I ever came to Cal Waste, back in the 90s, again, they taught this same program in the schools in Lodi, and they had a huge success with it. Those kids are now my age with children, and they're recyclers who've now taught their kids to recycle. So Dave Vaccarez, the owner of Cal Waste, is very passionate about putting this into the schools because he has seen it work, and he's been very successful with his programs in the schools. So yeah, that's why we're excited. We want to bring it here and give the schools up here the opportunity to.
So how, school's obviously not in session right now when we're filming, but so we get to the end of July, seems strange to say, when school starts up again, will there be anything new on any of the campuses, or is this all kind of something that's just now getting rolling? I know you've been visiting with kids, but kind of where does everything stand out there, as we say, where the rubber meets the road?
You know, nothing has changed. We started this process a year ago. Okay. So again, from the refurbishing of the containers into the cafeterias, into the schools, and then this video. So nothing will change for those students when they go back to, you know, for their next school year. But we plan to bring something for the next school year. So we plan to present, probably in the spring, we'll present to the superintendents and see, you know, there's a few things in the works, but we're just not ready to pull the trigger on them yet. But it will be the same. I mean, there will be no new receptacles. Everything will kind of be the same for those students. Yeah.
And so at schools, it sounds like the recycling is done the same way. They don't have to worry about glass or plastic or aluminum going into that. Now, on the campuses, are the recycling containers blue also, like they are at home? Or?
Well, that's a very good question. We actually provide, most schools have a container. So you see behind Rayleigh's or the supermarkets, the rubber lid container. That's what we provide. Now, in the classrooms, there are different color tubs that we provide unless they already have them. They say Calaveras Recyclers on them. You know, mixed recycling. So they're not blue, but they're a tub that sits in the classroom that the kids have identified with if they've been at that school for, you know.
And that's where that recyclable stuff goes.
Everything goes in there. Now, the county did provide some clear stream recycling receptacles, and it's a wire frame that has a clear bag that falls through it, and the county paid for those and provided those to any of the schools that wanted them. What I'm noticing on my school visits is that the schools are using those just to collect bottles and cans, and probably to fund something
for
at their
recycling
school.
on campus.
We do still have several of those left over if the schools are interested in wanting those. We had a couple run-ins where they didn't like the bags, but the county did provide those, and they're there for people to use. So
okay. Now, something that you're my first guest on Mondo Calaveras, but this is something that I want to do, and it kind of goes to your late night show, but it's something that I'm going to ask every guest I have, and it's actually, I think, about 3 questions, so I'm going to ask each of you. What's your favorite place, Kathy, to visit in Calaveras County?
Favorite place? I would say Big Tree State Park.
Big trees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mary Beth?
Oh gosh, you know, I like to visit Candy Rock.
Okay.
So that's a fun place to go. I'd have to say that's a great place.
Okay.
There's several beautiful places up here.
I
It's
know,
hard to
it's one
choose
of those,
just
and
one.
that's why I kind of
Yeah.
go there. And then my next question, because this is the one, because you never know where that secret place is, your favorite place to eat in the county.
Oh.
And you can't say your own kitchen, even though you might be a fantastic cook.
I would say probably, I don't know, there's several good restaurants in Murphy's.
I was going to say, Kathy is kind of a quasi-politician, so
Yeah,
she may
so
not
yeah,
be able to
yeah.
single out just
Yeah.
one.
There's several good restaurants in Murphy's, all of which that I really like
Mm-hmm.
and enjoy, you know, the ones that are there in Murphy's. So I would say probably any of those ones along Murphy's and
Okay.
such. I really enjoy
And
them.
Mary Beth?
I would say, to agree with Kathy, there's lots of good ones. I do enjoy the fish tacos at, I think it's called Sidewinders.
Oh,
in Angels
okay.
Camp down the main street. Fabulous fish tacos. Go try
Okay,
them.
There you go. And then my last one on this line, another Calaveras County question, is where would you take visitors? Now, Kathy, you might say where you already said your favorite place to go, but where would you take visitors who've never been here before?
Definitely, I would take them to Big Trees.
Big
to
Trees,
see
it
Big
is.
Trees. And in a normal non-drought year, I would take them to see some of our lakes and streams.
Oh, I know.
But
Boy.
right now, I probably wouldn't do that right now.
New Maloney's right now,
Yeah, it's really a
I
sad
can't even
picture.
remember when it was that
Yeah.
low, because it looks like it's a lot lower
Yeah.
now than it was our last
Yeah.
drought, so we'll just keep our fingers crossed.
And of
that-
course, you know, depending on the age of the visitors, they like the wine industries and
That's
the
right.
tasting rooms and such too. So that's always a nice attraction.
Mary Beth, a place for visitors?
I enjoy Murphy's a lot. I think if I was
Okay.
going to go downtown, I think that would be the area I'd take. Again, I guess depending on the age, but if you want
Sure.
something beautiful, scenic, I would definitely go to Big Trees.
Big Trees, it is, and that's
beautiful.
one of my favorite places in the county, whether it's full of people or not.
Yeah.
That was, in fact,
Just
where I
peaceful.
work, we were talking about that today. I said, you know, Yosemite is beautiful, but you don't want to be there when it's like San Francisco with pine trees. You know, you want to be there when you've got the valley almost to yourself or just a few other visitors, and you're not playing shoulder to shoulder. So Big Trees, even on a crowded holiday weekend,
Still, you can get that.
you can walk the North
Yeah.
Grove Trail, and even if you bump into a few visitors, it's a beautiful
And
place
it's just
to be.
peaceful. It's very
So
peaceful.
we're going to keep recycling. What's the final message for people on recycling, Mary Beth? We'll give you the last word on that.
Oh gosh, you know, I really just, Cal Waste wants to be a part of this community, wants to be a part of this county. We really, I would like to, I wish there was 10 of me to just really get out in this these communities and educate. I think that's going to be the most powerful thing, is to just educate these people.
Great.
And to be wherever we can be.
So it's all up to you, ladies and gentlemen. Learn what can be recycled as soon as you can. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Kathy Norhtington and Mary Beth Ospital for joining me. I'm Mike Taylor. Join us the next time for Mondo Calaveras. Have fun.